OMG, baby, tell them.
Hey there, welcome to Powered by Backers. It is yet another day. It's a gloomy Tuesday, actually, but depending on where you are, I guess, obviously. I am here inside, as we all are, I'm sure. I am joined by my guest today. I'm excited to have him, Brent, Keough. Brent, how are you today?
Doing great, Justin. How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'll do a quick little bio. So you are a sales team and organizational expert, and you've been doing that for the past basically 16 years in your career. And I was going to use a little quote. So I'm going to say this because you didn't put much of a bio. You're a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, and we are going to unravel all of that on today's show. You are also the co-founder of the Prism Group, which we work with, and so excited, to have you on. You and your lovely significant other are the co-founders of the Prism Group. So I will jump right in. Let's get started. Sales 101, as either an entrepreneur or as a sales manager. Tell the folks out there, what are your thoughts if you're getting into being an entrepreneur or if you're getting into sales? What are a couple tips that I think you would, tell others to utilize? What are some tips?
I've always looked at it like the tools that we have in front of us are things that we use on a day-to-day basis. And just like the chef that has that knife that he sharpens every day, we use words. And the words mean nothing if there's no meaning, like there's no value and there's no emotion in there.
Right.
I've always been about rapport building. That's the first step to any relationship, is to find out where the person's coming from. Everybody has this defensive barrier, that armor that you got on, and a lot of people go into sales wanting to chip at that armor. When in reality, all I want to do is I want to find out how we can remove it and how we can get rid of that tension, get rid of that headache, that barrier that you have in your life, and build from there. But a lot of people in sales, they look at it from the money perspective. They don't look at it from the long-term investment perspective.
Right. And I, like you said, so I mean, I've been in sales, business development most of my career as well before I got into entrepreneurship. And I would argue entrepreneurship is the ultimate sales role, because you're literally not just selling the product, you're selling yourself, you're selling the business, you're selling to employees to join you with your venture, your idea. But yes, you hit the nail on the head. And I think this is, I use this, rapport building, very key. Getting on that same level. I use a lot of analogies like, you want to be walking sort of hand in hand with somebody down the path rather than trying to like drag them or cajole them into like, coming with you. And you're right. The default of everyone, like in the world, the default is no, right?
Yep.
I asked my 4-year-old and 6-year-old boys, like, do you want to do something? And their default response is no, right? You want to help me with this? No. You want to eat this? No. You want to do that? No, right? So it's sort of like you got to get past that a little bit, right? So what are your tips on how to kind of, get to that, what would you say, obviously rapport, let's jump into rapport. Let's ad-lib here a little bit. I was going to ask something different, but I'm going to ad-lib. Rapport, what are maybe the top 3 ways to kind of build rapport? Give us kind of like a rapport building, quick.
Put that Corona bottle up in the top left-hand corner. I want to ask you about that before we get started.
There you go. It's just a coin thing from, I believe, we got it in Mexico a couple years ago at my brother wedding.
I'm surprised you don't have it thrown out since it got the word Corona on it.
No, it's all good. I got all kinds of stuff. I got a couple, like a growler up here on the other side from somewhere. Where is it? Right there. And I've got like little Bills helmets, Raptors hats.
Getting out there playing some sports, huh? And just like
Bills football. I never played football, ironically, at any sort of competitive level. I mean, I played I played in the schoolyard, but played hockey, lacrosse, volleyball.
I played forward.
Forward, yeah. In hockey?
Yeah, I was well, it's back home in Newfoundland. I mean, we got nothing better to do than just play hockey and drink. So,
Right.
But I mean, that's just an example.
So there's your example of building rapport. Ask questions and find out what their interests are, right?
Well, we talked about the bottle, and all of a sudden we're talking about hockey. Now we got something else in common, right? There's always the biggest thing in sales is people.
I like it. You just gave the example of what to do by doing it. Lead by example.
Always. I was speaking with one of my representatives, and I said, you're presented with 3 doors. 2 of them are failure, and 1 of them success. Which door do you choose?
All 3.
You eventually
try to open them all and any other thing and try to just tear the wall down, right? Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, I look at all the talent that gave up just before they broke through, and just before they found their calling in their industry, their why. And sales, one of the things I said in sales when I started in that industry 16 years ago is I would never sell my soul to it. I'll never sell my soul to the industry itself. I'm going to believe in what I do, and I'm going to stand behind what's right.
Right.
Because if you're not doing that, like, what are we doing? We're hindering ourselves as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as philanthropists, as charities. We're all striving towards something, and it's good versus bad.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think you're kind of leaning towards the fact that, and I agree with this too. I've gotten into situations where, either I didn't believe in the product or I didn't believe that the business stood behind certain things. And, at first, when you're positioned with that, especially if you're with an organization and things kind of shift, it's a difficult thing as a sales rep to decide, what, I don't feel comfortable selling this. And I'd rather go find another opportunity elsewhere where I can use those talents and skills to sell something that I do believe in. I mean, I'll use me for an example. Mutual funds. Like I worked for AGF, and as I kind of got into it, I thought, hey, this is a great, sort of industry. And then I started looking at it, and it was 08, 09, and the market crashed and everything was going to shit. And, everyone's account was down, 40, 50, 60%. And, and everyone's complaining like, well, why didn't you guys? It's like, well, everyone's down. Right. And it just made me realize, like, I didn't really want to be in that. I used to joke about, I didn't really like talking about money for money, right?
Yeah.
I'd much rather help people grow their business or do something that's valuable to them rather than saying, hey, you know what, you should really put, your retirement, whatever, your RRSP contribution towards this, whatever it is, right? Mutual fund. It's a giant, in my opinion. All those watching, I don't care. I think it's a giant pyramid scheme, right? It's a giant legal Ponzi scheme, but that's my bashing mutual funds. But I mean, definitely not, as you said, selling out to sales in general, but finding something that you're passionate about and something that you can actually help somebody achieve, some sort of result, which is obviously what sales, a product is supposed to solve a problem, or service, solve a problem, right? And then so in sales, you're trying to uncover what their problems are and then try to, find that solution to solve that problem. Hopefully you have it in your, in your tool belt, right? To be able to actually solve the problem. So go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, what are some of the strategies that you use? Like, I mean, yes, the question-based sort of getting to know somebody, the rapport. Let's step into sort of, step 2. What are some of the techniques that you've learned throughout the years? I mean, I can tell you one I've used and taught is spin selling. I talk a little bit about that, but what are some of the things that you've used over the years that that have helped you? That is sort of like frameworks where it really sort of positions things.
Well, I mean, everything starts with the conversation. I mean, and I've done street marketing campaigns in downtown Toronto. If you want an idea of a quick pitch, go to Bay and Bloor and try to stop people from getting off the
You
subway.
get about a half of a second.
You got a half of a second. The conversation didn't start here. It started.
You gotta get it down. Yeah. You gotta be like, hey, you coming down? Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's exactly it. But for me, it's the energy. It's what you're bringing to the table in the beginning, even before we have it. Like I could see somebody that has that blank look on their face, and the moment that I acknowledge them, they change so quickly. Like they just put this mask on, and they're trying to be something that they're not, or they ignore the situation, or they walk into it because they said, you know what, I got nothing else better to do.
Yeah,
So,
I'm 10 minutes early for my train. I'll hear you out. I'll hear you out for 2 minutes. Yeah.
The people are like, oh, I got to catch my bus. It's like, oh, what bus are you taking? I'll hop on the bus with you. You get a monthly pass in downtown Toronto, and then you're 6 streets up, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I got the sale. Right, but I worked in charity, so it was a different.
Interesting. I've worked downtown Toronto, so I've seen the people on the streets. I actually worked similar type role, but in sporting events, very, very early on, signing people up for credit cards about 25 years ago.
You got me
free T-shirts, right? Exactly, free T-shirt.
Oh, well, that's your impulse sale right there. I mean, it's your greed factor.
I've even signed up since then. My wife and I. That's how we met. At that job, ironically.
My whole sales structure was built around a company that I worked for. Like my first sales company that I worked for was in the nonprofit sector. They were a third-party marketing company for all these reputable charities that everybody knows and loves. And I mean, I work with everything from Sick Kids Hospital.
Sick Kids. I was going to say I've seen them down there a lot. Yeah.
Oh, Plan Canada. I mean,
Plan and Sick Kids. So is that an organization that runs basically the on-street marketing for those charities?
Yes, they used to be TNI, and then DonorWorks took over that group down there. So a lot of those companies out there were part of third-party marketing companies, and we were the pioneers of that. Like before that, the model that they took, that sales model, they took it from a company called DS Max. I don't know if you remember DS Max in Toronto, GTA. They were big in Hamilton. They sold crap out of a box to business, like calculators and toys and all this kind of stuff.
I think I've heard. There's another one too, where they would sell like oil changes and stuff like that. I forget what they're called.
Coupons, all this kind of stuff. It was all trickled from that one group, and they took that business model from DS Max selling it and got it into the charity sector. And then when they got into the charity sector, I put 10 years into that industry, traveled all over the country. When I say like knocked on doors, I probably talk to 100 people a day, 150 on a really good day, depends on how tight the houses were. I mean, I was closing average of 2 a day doing that. Got good at it, just started relating with people. Before
what would the close, so sorry, was this for the donation? So are you, so charity, so are you, when you say close, you're saying maybe like a monthly donation of $20, $50, whatever it was, right?
I beta tested Sick Kids Hospital before any person did it out there. Same with a lot of charities. I mean, we were doing Mothers Against Drunk Driving before that whole scandal happened back in 06 or 07. Right. And we wanted to stand behind charities that, said that they were going to put large portions of it to the organization, right? So, I mean, you see your why when you're going to Sick Kids Hospital. I mean, I have seen Sick Kids Hospital more times than ever, and just through the tours and seeing everything that we've done, that Peter Gilliam building, we were there before anybody else got there, right? Our why was, we're making a difference. We're doing stuff, so I stood behind that. And I always said, like, I started out with good mentors. They taught me the system, and that company spread across the entire country. Last year I was in Arizona with the previous tech startup company, and I was talking to a guy that I worked with his uncle in the original TNI group, TNI, BNI, all the networking groups. And he's running the Phoenix, Arizona market. And we're talking about like old times 12, 15 years ago, and he's young. But I'm like, we built something. We built something together as friends, as brothers, as sisters, and then every other venture I got into, that's how I based my business model around, my persona. This is who I am.
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
I met you the first time, is this
When
who I
you
am?
what? Yeah. Yeah.
When
Yeah. You talk like, yeah, it's the same conversation all the time. I mean, I'm the same way as well. I do that on the show. You know, sometimes I talk more or listen more depending on the context, but yeah, definitely. So let's segue
yeah,
into Prism Group.
yes.
You know, obviously they changed from Red Shoe Diaries. Oh no, wait, that's a different show. That's late night.
I was gonna say, is that a show back in the day? I think
That was what's this, David
back from
Duchovny. David Duchovny
yes, from
from
X
X
Files.
Files. X Files. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We were just talking about that the other
the
day.
king of useless information
Yeah,
up
yeah,
here.
yeah. No, what's it was red what was it called? It was red
Savvy
hair.
Redhead. The Savvy Redhead.
The savvy redhead, exactly.
Yeah.
And now you've transferred into the Prism Group. So
Yeah.
what are sort of you guys working on right now? Obviously, we've just signed up with you. You know, I'll spill the beans. You offer a series of sort of support services. You know, namely, we've signed up for sort of bookkeeping and financial accounting services. But what is it that you've kind of brought to the table as transition from the Savvy Redhead to the Prism Group? And like, you know, let's talk about some of the ideas that, you know, you were, I mean, we briefly touched on in our conversation, you know, not on this show, but tell us a little bit about what you've brought to the business and where you sort of see that industry maybe. That's probably a loaded question, a couple of questions, but
100%.
yeah.
It's a very open-ended question that started years ago. I after working with a lot of people, I saw the holes in the market. You talk to enough people, you see the complaints that people are getting.
Right.
And I mean, the door-to-door industry, when we started this, and I'm segueing this, like I'll eventually get to my whole point here. Justin, you'll know me.
It's all good. It's all good.
When we started in the door-to-door industry, the internet wasn't popular.
Yeah.
The internet, barely anybody had it. They didn't understand it. It was not something that they wanted to get around. So when I knocked on their door, I was their entertainment.
Yeah.
Until the moment that that company put a tablet in my hand. And they said, okay, now rather than pen and paper, you're going to use this. I looked at that tablet as I'm walking out the door. I'm like, this is going to replace my job one day. This is going to completely change it. And look at the industry right now. How many door-to-door people are knocking on our doors now? So I saw
Not many, I guess. I mean, so let's say, okay, the tablet replaced. So when you've got the tablet in your hand and you're signing somebody up with the tablet, you feel that that's essentially replaced the person being there?
well, what happens is people see it more and more often, and when it becomes more and more apparent that it's changing, people adapt with the times.
Right.
So everybody now has a Nest camera. When I was leaving the door-to-door industry, Nest cameras were just starting to come into the doors, right? And now people can answer their doors without even answering the door.
They can be
And
like, hey, what do you want? Yeah, not even
what
come
do you
out.
want? Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
here. Meanwhile, they're in the basement, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, how can you read somebody if you can't see them?
Yeah,
Right?
I think
How can you relate when people look at you through the lens and automatically thinking, guy's trying to sell me something, girl's trying to sell me something, I'm not even going to answer it.
back to the no, right? The de facto no thanks, I'm good, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, get me in the ring and we fight a few rounds and you know, in sales, like you got to take a couple of punches. You got to take a lot of rejection. But when you know that you're walking into a ring with somebody that's not going to go down,
Right.
you got to decide whether you need to get into that fight or whether you have to change and pivot to a different round. So I got into the tech startup world because I realized that after '08, when this whole housing crisis happened, well, I mean, we brought Skip the Dishes, Uber, DoorDash, Airbnb, all these people just started innovating. Right? I was in the charity sector when we had the crash, and we had the best year because people reflected. People changed their views after that, right?
Right.
The industry is changing, and we're going into a world now where this is common.
Yeah.
So you and I get it because we transition with the times.
Yeah.
But we're worried about all the other businesses that aren't.
So okay, that's interesting. You talk about sort of the Zoom conferencing. So I know the answer. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. Or I don't know the answer. That's probably it's a bad one. Hey, I know the answer, but what do you know? No, it's more along the lines of what are your thoughts on sales now using video conferencing?
I think it's revolutionary.
Right.
I think by the end of it, I mean, I was talking with a guy the other day that deals with a lot of IPOs, and I know you're dealing with the IPOs, so I got a connection for you, by the way. So, great guy. He worked with
Bio
Microsoft.
initial backers offering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, believe me, I'm
Yeah.
pushing it out there. But that's the
Yes.
thing. I mean, I can sell something I can get behind.
Yeah.
Right? What you're doing, revolutionary. What you're doing is, I said it to you. I'm like, you're shaking the market up, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I didn't say it like, oh, you're shaking the market up. I'm looking at you being like, you know what? I shook the market up as well 6 years ago when we built this tech startup company, right?
Yeah.
Because people said it wasn't going to happen. And I looked at them and I said, we'll make it happen. We just got to commit ourselves to it, right? My mentor said to me, he said, Brent, when life gives you lemons, make orange juice and leave the world wondering how you did it. And that to me was the.
It took me a second. Okay, lemons gave you oranges. Lemons made orange juice, right? Yeah, exactly. How'd you do it?
Right?
Yeah.
And that whole TNI model, like that they took from DS Max, I brought that into that company. We built that model around it, and it became a North American organization. I said it was in the middle of a Series A round. We look back on it and we're like, how did we do that? Trial and error. Take the negatives. I mean, I took more no's than anybody else, but I got in front of more people than anybody else.
Right. Yeah, it's all about opportunity, right?
Huh?
It's all about opportunity, right? And the more opportunity you present yourself, obviously the more that will stick or the more that will happen, right?
Exactly. Right.
It's like sales, right? Sales is a numbers game. 100. I mean, you can obviously get better at it. You can obviously make each sort of interaction or engagement better and have a higher chance. But at the end of the day, 0 from 0 is still 0, right? If you don't get the calls in, the effort, the knocks, the whatever, right? The engagement, the reach out there, you're not going to get anywhere, right? So it's a people say it's a contact sport, right? It's sort of a numbers game. So interesting. So that's specifically, I'm very interested actually to understand specifically what you're doing, like some of the tactical things that you're doing with Prism Group that you brought from TNI and sort of the door-to-door and the donor sort of, like, what are some of the things that, because I mean, I'd love people that are watching this to hear like, hey, that's really cool. We should try that, right? I know what we're doing, but love to hear what you're doing.
Step number 1, set money aside for a second. Put it aside. Just say if all your needs are taken care of, what is it that you want in your life? You want to be happy, right? You want to be content. You want to have friends. You want to have a social life. You want to experience things as an explorer, as a student of life.
Right.
A lot of business owners out there, they look at it from the money perspective and they don't get past the money, and because of it, they don't see people for who they are. Right? I have a motto. It's, I don't build companies, I build people. And people build the company, whether it's building them for my direct sales team, building them as a business owner that can connect them into a network that can connect with networks. It's all intertwined. And rather than me be the person that's trying to build my own little, house in the corner, I'd sooner get everybody together and build opportunity. So for any business out there, put your team first, put your customers first. Understand that if you care, people will see it. People will see it, and they're gonna want to know more about why you care. Right? Why I work with you, Justin, is because I could see that you're passionate about it. I can see that you're dedicated, you're all in on it. So when you're all in on it and I like it, I'm all in. Let's go. Right? And when I say it, I'm not being a sales guy where you can see it in my face being like, oh, he's bullshitting me. Because we all know the sales bullshitter.
Yeah.
There's sincerity. Because
and that's the key. That's part of the building the rapport, right? They need to know that you're sincere and that you've got their intentions and your intentions all, you know, top of mind, right? So
we can help each other grow. Where's the negative?
Right.
Right? I mean, the three main reasons why people don't buy is money, time, and trust. And if you don't have that one, the other two, even if they had all the money in the world or all the time in the world, they're not going to give it to you.
Right.
But if this is established, then this doesn't become relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I have people that say, I only got 5 minutes for you, and I'll sit down with them and I'll take 2 hours of their time.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? It's like, I only got 5 minutes. It's like, you only got 5 minutes for me because you don't think I'm valuable.
Because you don't know the value. And yeah, I mean, we used to talk about, so actually with backers, we talk about that with the EIRs, the entrepreneurs in residence, you know, and so people would say, hey, initially I was saying they should set up a daily call with these issuers. And they were saying, these guys, they don't have time to have a daily call with me, right? And I would say, well, do they want to raise $1.5 million? Do they want to grow their business beyond, you know, where it is? You know, the daily call, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes with you as the EIR, is integral to their growth, right? You're there as a valuable asset. So they see the value in you, they'll drop things to be a part of it, right? They'll, you know, right now we're setting up our cohort for the next sort of wave of issuers. Starts August 3rd is the first day, but the group sessions, and people say, well, I can't get these people to sign up for a weekly call every Wednesday at 1:00. It's like, well, then it's not important to them to grow their business and grow a loyal following of customers and backers and or investors, right? So it's all about the value, right? And it's how you position that value, right? So what are some of the things you guys are doing at Prism Group?
You know, I am all for finding out. It starts with the learning process, right? Yeah. With our sales team. So when I started out, like Leslie, she's the operations. She deals with all of putting all this crazy ideas on the paper. I'm in the middle of finishing my ebooks right now for sales. So I've got entire courses on everything from the 5 steps to a pitch to overcoming objections to impulse training to relating workshops. Like I cover it all the way to the psychological part of it for different personality types and your A-type versus your social butterfly versus your skeptic, and find ways that we can get through to every person, right? So, because at the end of the day, if the conversation's starting, it's starting for some reason. You got to find out what it is. So as we're asking questions and building rapport, I'm qualifying them. I'm asking them open-ended questions. I do this with my team as an example. What kind of ice cream do you like, Justin? Hard serve or soft serve ice cream?
Fudgesicles.
Oh, you like fudgesicles? So
I don't really like ice cream, actually.
What?
Ironically, we had this conversation. I'm not a huge ice cream fan. I'll eat mint chocolate chip, but I love fudgesicles. I love popsicles.
So you love convenience. Like you love something that you can just grab and go. You love like the messy side of it, right? Like you are a kid up, like get me the hot dog at the vendor downtown. I got my ballpark hot dog.
Yeah, that's it. I love them. Street meat. It's the best.
But that's the thing. Like you're saying it like I'm a fudgicle. I'm like, so why am I going to talk about ice cream now?
Right.
I'm talking about the ice. No, I'm talking about the because it's like you're a get up and go type of person.
I guess I never associated it with that, but I was like, yeah, because you have to scoop it and get the like. It's like
you're creatures of habit. I mean, what do you drink in the morning? Tea, coffee, or water? Either.
Probably none of the above, actually.
You should drink.
Bottle of Coke. No, just kidding.
I recommend Dasani.
Yeah. No, actually, we're just in the middle of starting the sign.
Yeah.
What do you mean the sign?
Sorry, what was that?
What's the sign?
The sign? Oh, Dasani.
Oh, Dasani. Okay.
Oh, you gotta buy Dasani.
Yeah, the big bottle of water. No, we were actually just in the middle of starting a sort of we did a juice cleanse last week, so that's what made me think about it. And then we're in the middle of going sort of a vegan, vegetable-based, plant-based diet. So this morning I actually had lemon and water as when I got up, and then and then we had our sort of pre-made breakfast. It was actually pretty good. So shout outs to Energy Shack.
A long way, I'll tell you. Like I got a friend that's got a gluten allergy, and I mean, back in the day, I mean, gluten tasted like moldy bread, and now they've come such a long way. But that's the thing, the market changes. And you know, I say to my team, I'm like, everything in this room, from the floor to the wall to the ceiling to everything around it, was bought and sold, including the trees, chances are.
Yeah.
Right. So we live in a world of sales.
Yeah.
Pick the thing that you're passionate about in sales. Just like business owners, if you're going to do it, look past the money first. Right? Is it something that you can get behind, that you can actually see joy out of? And if you do get that emotional side to it, can you get other people to get emotional about it?
Yeah. Well, here's a quote. You probably know who said it, and I don't even know the exact quote, but basically, sort of a sales guru, and I'm terrible with names, said something along the lines of, find something that you can sell or value, create value for more people. The more value you create for more people, then you'll never, suffer for money, essentially. I forget the guy's name.
Zig
Ziglar. Yeah, Zig Ziglar, right? Something along the lines of, create value for enough people and you'll never go hungry, right? So it's all about creating value.
A lot of people quote, people like Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street, which everybody pretty much knows. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's great. Yeah. Just don't follow half of what he did. If you're reading this, Jordan Belfort, followed your straight line persuasion tactics for years. But he went out there, he pounded it out. Zig Ziglar, though, he was the pioneer that took sales and made it a career.
Right.
Like he built the structure, and before that, people were in boxes, like traveling all over the country, peddling stuff out of a box, selling snake oil. Right?
Snake oil salesman, right?
And then the vacuum salesman came, and then Cutco knives came, and then then I came. Right? It's watching people try to hold on to that fight, right? When they know that it's inevitably going to change, right? And in today's market, I mean, you look at a lot of companies right now that are in the world that are trying to make it. Small businesses that are wanting to break through, but they're missing something. There's something that is not shining through. They got their why, they have their passion behind their business, but there's something that they're missing. What is it? Right? Because if they had it, they would be successful. My job is to find out what it is. Right? And if I could find out the why, I could sell the why. I could sell the belief. I mean, I think every TED Talks motivational speaker talks about the why. It's not the what, right? We buy into each other.
Yeah, it's the emotion, right? It's being able to spark that emotion, right? Where whether it's happiness, sadness, or like digging into it and then connecting on that deeper level, right? And then being able to sort of discuss it and then find the solution, at least in a sales perspective, right? You're uncovering that raw emotion.
It's more than the sale.
Right.
More than the sale. It's the genuine bond between two people that never met each other for a couple of times.
Or a brief second, and they're just jump right into it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I worked in the impulsive sales world for, the first 14 of my 16 years, like impulse selling. Selling the spot. It was always how it is. And one of my mentees became like a mentor. It was a weird story between the two of us, but we're very close friends. He was having a tough time in door to door, and I said, "What's going on?" He's like, "Well," he said, "people aren't paying attention to me." And I'm like, "Well, are you more entertaining than what they're doing? Like, are you sparking their attention? Are you taking them away from what they're already doing and being something that they want to see more of.
Right.
And to me in business, it's the same thing. It's, you know, I want to work with you, Justin, because I like you. I want to work with you because you know the struggles, because you led by example. You took the bumps on the chin. You see it. You built character. You found the personification of yourself through trial and error, and throw you into the fire and feed you to the wolves, and you know, but you came out of it. You came out of it a much better person. A lot of people in business go through that. I watched it. Tens of thousands of businesses coming in being like, we're good at what we do, we just can't hire anybody. Why? Well, I mean, they don't have an HR system, so they just let people go willy-nilly, and they don't have a standard operating procedure that people have to follow, because everybody follows a procedure. Even people like myself, that's very sporadic and all about different things all the time. And the business owners have to hold on to that why. And while you're doing that, and while I find out what your why is, we'll take care of everything else on the back end. We'll take care of your bookkeeping, so CRA isn't breathing down your neck at the end of the year. We'll take care of your marketing campaign, get you on LinkedIn, jump into Sales Navigator, create a customized email campaign to get you going, like to build your presence, right? We'll get you into social media. We'll jump into your emails if you're bad at answering emails, right? How many companies have I sent proposals like, or I want a quote on something and I don't get an email back? Right? What am I doing? I'm going to go to the next person and send another email out until I get a response, right? So rather than you forgetting that email because you had a 12-hour day working with your customers, let me do it. Let my team do it. Actually, my team's better than me doing that. I'm bad for you. That's why I have an admin team. My email's bad. But for me, it's my passion is sales.
Yeah.
Not sales as selling. Because there reaches a point in your career where you realize that it's all just a conversation. It's who do I like and who can I work with and who can't I work with.
Right.
Right. And that's
100%. So let's talk a little bit about that. That's interesting when you we'll talk a little bit about what you guys offer as well. So you're onboarding, and I actually really liked what you guys did. You know, I was sort of the sellee, I guess, if you will. You know, and you had sort of a 4-person conversation on Zoom, where it was yourself, Leslie, and Amran. What's it?
Wingman. That wasn't a person.
No, not Wingman. No, what was the other?
Simran.
Simran. Yeah, Simran. Yeah, Simran and Leslie, right? Wingman is not a person. That was a recording. But yeah, I got that part. That was your wingman, right? There, you're at the club. You're in your 20s, and you had your wingman. Anyways.
Well, it's funny. I was looking at a power dialer for air call, and I was sitting in the back, and I never heard of like AI software for pitches, and I said, we were saying, I was like, oh, it'd be great if they had some kind of AI technology that could take a conversation like this and transcribe it and come up with like an analytical reason why they didn't buy. And Leslie's to the left of me, she's like, that doesn't exist. And the guy from Aircall is like, actually, there's a company called Gong. And I was like, oh yeah? And she's like, it's creepy. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, it's a great way to be able to find out what people need. Because sometimes people won't willingly tell you.
What is it? So Wingman records it, and then you feed that recording into Gong, and then Gong analyzes it?
Gong costs $1,500 per seat per month. Wingman, we found it because we got a tech guy that we're like, okay, so I mean, this is the pinnacle. There must be a competition that you got all these big companies working with it. It's like the Mercedes of softwares for AI. But we found this one for Wingman, which costs like $70 per person per month. You know, so I got a team that'll go out there and beta test softwares and find out what APIs connect with everything to be able to maximize on efficiencies. Right. Now all of a sudden I've got a formulated pipeline where I know exactly where everybody's at, tasks are provided, email campaigns are getting sent out. There's a revolving situation happening, right? And everybody's.
So what let's dive into it. So we use Zoho as our backend, a lot of the Zoho capabilities. I also use Zoom, which we're using right now. Calendly, a couple others. But what are, we've used in the past, Active Campaign has been a good one, MailChimp. What are some of the things that you guys use? You mentioned that whole sort of flow to track what we'll just throw names out there. People like to hear what other people are using. What do you use from that sort of like lead capture, to kind of autoresponder, to meetings? I think you use Zoom because we were on a Zoom call, to maybe the follow-up or CRM. What do you guys use?
So for our CRM, we use HubSpot. I mean, I've been
HubSpot?
working with
Okay.
HubSpot for about 6 years, so I've trailed that in and out, and I call it the matrix, actually, when you start getting in. And so I mean, I created videos for the team on how to navigate it to be able to maximize the efficiencies of it. So if anybody has any questions, like I got a QC guy, my quality control guy, that will listen to the calls, listen to the Zoom meetings, like give me feedback based on what they need. And then we create a customized training program for that sales representative to be able to hone in on what they need work with. And then based off of that, all of a sudden it's just dot connection, right? So between Slack for our chat,
Slack,
we use Teamwork for our internal team. So we set our tasks.
Facebook, Teamwork?
And teamwork. So it's basically like a, it's a task.
Is it part of Facebook? No? Teamwork?
No,
Or Google? Is it part of Google?
That's some API. My tech guys deal with that. Okay. They just got it on my computer. But no, it sets tasks for like all my different departments. So if we're talking with our team and we're like, okay, so we've got this social media campaign that's going on right now. We're reaching out, You're going to take this. You're going to take this. While we're doing it, my admin team is there taking notes on it and putting it into Teamwork for the team to be able to answer. Right. So it's efficiency where the communication is streamlined, right? Like the tasks are getting done. There's accountability back there again. I hold accountability to my team. I don't micromanage my team. They know what they need to do, and I go above and beyond with them, right? Like lead by example. I'll hop on a Zoom call. I hop on a Zoom call with Sim, right? To work with you because she's going to learn from that, and she's 19 years old. She's going to learn from that, and she's going to go through a lot less trials and tribulations that we went through to be able to be a sales professional and future entrepreneur. That's the why behind it. And that's I think that's the secret sauce to working with business is you gotta be all in on it. You gotta be all in on it, and your team has to see that you're all in on it, because if they know that you're building something and there's nothing that's going to stop you, they will go to war with you. They will burn the boats behind them and they will go to war. Yeah. Right? They'll forget it, because at the end of the day, what are we all striving towards?
Yeah, you got it.
Right?
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's cool. So yeah, Simran was great and it was good. We do it as well. We do an onboarding call with Zoho. We use the thing in Zoho. Zoho is a very sort of, they've got a number of different applications. Unfortunately or fortunately, I am the tech guy. So a lot of it, I set it all up. So I actually do kind of delve into things and get some, we have Addy on our team as well. He does a lot of that and sort of integrates the Zoho stuff. So he's great. But, initially I'm sort of that tester. And this is the thing with an early stage startup. I started testing it, in the first couple of years. Now, as we grow, we have other people now that can do it. And my time is spent on, things like this and, racing cars. Right. So that's where I spend my time.
I tell people, especially as entrepreneurs, we get pulled in all these different directions. And I mean, the tech startup world is the perfect example of wearing 20 hats at once. Right. Until you accumulate enough money that you can hire people to take over the positions. And then by that time, you don't want to hear about it. But you have to build that direct core team that wants to hear from you. Yeah, that's the thing. And as long as you've got that, you've got your generals out there. I followed Sun Tzu's The Art of War, if you ever read the book. Yeah. And I mean,
I haven't read the book, but I've read lots of quotes from it. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, every person plays a strategic role in the battle, in the war. I mean, you've got your guys that are, behind the scenes that are decoding the messages. You got people that are on the front lines that are, holding the back. It's if there's no coordination and there's no communication, you're fighting a losing battle.
Right.
And the moment that happens and you lose control of that, well, we lose control of our emotions.
Yeah.
See it, react, and based off of the reaction, well, it's going to determine whether we get down the successful path or we go down the path of failure. Right?
It's definitely larger businesses, definitely a people game, right? It's definitely having that vision and that directive so that everyone, like you said, burns the boats and is all pushing in the same direction and isn't looking over the shoulder like, hey, the whole analogy of burning boats is that you're not worried that you got to go back home on those boats, right? You're here to stay. This is what you're doing, right? And that's the concept of burning your boats. But I agree 100% with that. So I appreciate you, Brent, for joining me. We'll end it off here. It's been, hopefully very informative to all those people out there watching. But let's end it. I end it on this. I think I'm going to always end it on this. One last question. If you could go back and talk to a younger Brent, a younger you, or one word that you would, or a piece of advice that you would give to that younger you or to a potential, entrepreneur or somebody coming up through the startup ranks, what would that one word be or that piece of advice be?
If I had to know what I had to go through to get to this point, I don't know if I would have had the mental capacity to do it. But I took it one day at a time, one conversation at a time, until I realized that at the end of the day, all that matters is that I'm happy. All that matters is that people around me are happy. And when you can bring that kind of environment to the world, it is more powerful than any sales pitch you'll ever hear. Interesting.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm just trying to piece together. So it's almost like if you went back and were able to tell yourself what was going to happen, you think yourself back then wouldn't have gone through with it. You've been like, fuck that. I don't have the time.
No, I would have looked I would have looked at him after I walked away and like, oh, and another thing. Yeah. And another thing, you better get to that point because I got a meeting with Justin Fox.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. In 15 years, we're going to be sitting there with Justin. No, I agree that, I think that's living, right? Like if you were to, it's hard. That's kind of interesting. I look at like myself and I think it's across the board. My dad used to say things like, oh, when you're older, you'll understand, you'll realize, what I'm saying here. You're going to thank me for this. That's right. And then, and it's the lessons that you learn. And, if you were just given, or if you were told that something's going to happen, you would think that you wouldn't be able to deal with, but life doesn't give you things that you can't handle until you die. Obviously you're dead. So that's it. But
my team, and I'll end it off of this. When I started in sales, my mentor went to me and said, the team thinks that you can't sell. You have a decision to make. You can prove them wrong or you can prove them right. So, I'm still here. I don't know where they are. If they're there in the world, Joe, I appreciate you, man. You were a foundation to my success. To those who doubted it, keep going. You'll get there. So
it's very true. It's very like, and there's got to be almost, do you think, and we could probably keep talking forever, but do you think the chip on your shoulder, sort of that mindset of like, they don't think you can do it, made you even more so in your personality, like your own personality, that gave you even a little more motivation to sort of stick with it?
It was, if they saw the weakness, I had a decision to make whether I can fix it or not. Right. We all make a decision at the end of the day, whether we're going to fix our problems or whether we create more, whether we want to build on ourselves or destroy what we have. It happens, and it all starts within. And, I realized that, the rejection part of it, the no, it's just going to be a part of my life. Just like your kids say no to you. How many times did you say no to them? Right? No,
Yeah.
you can't have ice cream. No, you can't have a fudgicle. No, you can't go out and play. No, you
That's what
can't
they
go.
were doing today. It was fudgicles. That's why we were talking about today. They had it. I had a fudgicle. They had a I don't know what, a Haagen-Dazs thing with like cookies and cream with my wife.
Yeah.
They're all fancy pants. I'm like just plain Jane. Give me a fudgicle. But
But
yeah,
that's the thing. It's simple, right?
yeah,
But there's so much more meaning behind, because you took the time out of your day to buy it at the store. There must have been some emotional attachment to it when you were a kid.
Oh, I love fudgicles. Believe me, I've eaten a million of them probably in my life.
Exactly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
why
mean,
I'm on a plant-based diet.
which they've come a long way. It's amazing. But that's the thing. It's changing, right? We're becoming more adaptable into modern society. With technology in the mix. I mean,
Yeah,
right? I watched my first BNI networking event over Zoom. They've never done that in 4 decades.
right.
Never.
I told you earlier off air, that's Backers Network Inc. That's us too. But anyways,
Yeah.
no, and here's the one thing. So when I got into sales, very much similar to you. Actually, I have an interesting story. I don't know if I like actually cried, but it was very early on. I have a phys ed degree, so I was either going to be a teacher or there was a lot of uncertainty. I
Yep.
didn't become a teacher. I went to Korea, taught English, came back. It was kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to be a teacher. I would have had to go to teachers college. I didn't apply even to teachers college, so I didn't get to go to teachers college. And so it's kind of like I'm sitting there and someone said to me, hey, you should get into sales. And I was like, no, fuck that. And my dad was in sales. Like I kind of grew up, he was in sales, his whole life, right? And it was sort of like this, initial reaction to, not wanting to be in sales for some reason. Maybe it was a dirty word, right? And a lot of people think that.
The
But
90s, the early 2000s was a very
yeah,
interesting time. I mean, I was across the street from gas guys like Direct Energy, Just Energy, like
yeah,
guys out there, Kirby vacuum cleaners around every corner, Star vacuum cleaners, and then the other charity guys. Like, I mean, I was sometimes the third person that knocked on that person's door at the end of the day.
yeah.
I mean,
So
try winning over Queen Street. I mean, you go down by the university where all the professors are, fantastic. But I mean, all those areas in Toronto, the Danforth, all the way to Yonge Street. I mean, I worked that whole area. I remember we were on Yonge Street and they're like, you can't close it. Everybody speaks Cantonese or Mandarin. I'm just like, okay. And then the first person that came in, Lucy, 17 turning 18, and we were talking, and I was like, so what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm going to school at the end of the year for medicine at UT. And I said, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, what else? And she's like, oh, I speak Mandarin and Cantonese. And I'm like, we're going down.
there you go. So you brought her with you.
But we did.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, anybody who speaks English, I'm going to talk. And anybody, if they say no English, I'd be like, Lucy?
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, ni hao, lei hao ma.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Figure out what language. Yeah.
But it's making them feel comfortable. And because of that, we took somebody that was shy, that was a university person that, never knew sales, and we put her into a comfortable situation, right? Where she felt empowered. Like she's like, oh, I'm not just sitting back and listening. And then she became a leader. And then she trained the team to do that. I look back on all the people that I trained over the years, and it's quite amazing the people that come through and then they all open up their own business or they become a director for an organization in sales, and they found their calling because I'll sit down with them and I'd be like, what do you do for fun? And they're like, oh, I play chess. I'm like, chess is like sales.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm like, cooking's like sales. Or, I'm studying law. Law is like sales because it's all communication.
Right. It's all on uncovering what their needs are, their problems, and figuring out a problem, right? It's problem solving 101.
I don't steak the vegetarian. So, I mean, the fact that you told me you're on a vegan diet twice, it means that I'm not going to push the porterhouse steak to you, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even people like, Gary Vee say, sell to people that need it.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I actually watched an interesting clip of his today, and actually, I'm gonna start using it even more in my life. He's like, I don't have time to convince somebody to believe in what I believe in.
Yeah.
Move on. I'm not gonna sit there and I mean, so there's sort of in sales, and I was kind of saying that that I didn't want to get into it. I eventually did get into it, or very quickly got into it, and I excelled at it because of I think because of what you're saying. I can communicate with people. I'm easy to that, and so, but the whole thing of sales too is there's also sometimes people will give up too easily,
Yeah.
right? And because the default is no, that no doesn't necessarily mean no, they don't want to buy, or they're not going to work with you, or that maybe later, or maybe a different product, or whatever it is, right? So you really have to understand what's behind the no, right? And start to, and so that's kind of where I'm literally speaking out loud, thinking out loud from what Gary Vee said, and what I think, good sales reps or people in general, entrepreneurs who are selling their thoughts and their ideas, and their business idea, is that yes, there's a no, and then there's different types of no's.
Yes.
Right. And there's maybe I don't understand it, so my default's no. Or maybe I don't have time to sit here and think about it, so my default's no. Or, maybe, it's just no. Right. And, I have other reasons to say no. I hopefully, if he's watching, hopefully I'll have one of, the people that I worked with. I don't want to say his name just on here yet. But I worked with very early on in my career, and crazy training. We were selling $100,000 packages to go to the Super Bowl for 10 people over the phone with no website. One call close.
Tell me about that experience.
I was there for 3 years.
And 3 years to do that.
Yeah.
Made money at it, obviously.
We made good money. We made 10% of everything we closed.
You call everybody on Sunday? You worked on Sunday, didn't you?
We were calling Fortune 500 CEOs, cold calling them, and we would dial 200 to 300 dials a day.
Yep.
And
you guys going cold?
We were dialing. We're calling pick up the phone. Like I didn't even put the phone down. I just would touch it with my finger. I touch it with my finger. Yeah. Like we're talking Jordan Belfort in a boiler room setting. In a boiler room.
Vin Diesel, go.
Go. Yeah. And we're on the phone. We're trying to get past the gatekeepers. We're trying to, and the turnover in that company was unreal. Like you'd have 15 people start on Monday. By Wednesday, there's 5. And by Friday, you maybe have 1 or 2 that actually joins the sales floor. Yeah. Every week.
You're often cut early.
every week, right? And then it was like, and then we would put stuff up on the board and one call close. Like it was literally boiler room, right? And we had the whiteboard. You would write up, prospects. Yeah.
That's right. Like this. Intro, short story.
Yep.
Presentation.
Oh yeah, we had a full pitch, pretty much, memorized, and then we'd just get into talking. Like we would talk all about, it was Super Bowl, right? So I was a sports fan, NFL fan. It was the Masters. We sold the Masters. We sold the Canadian Open. We sold, various sports, events, like major sporting events. Typically I was on the Super Bowl or Masters, a couple Canadian Opens, but we filled whole booths or whole, I can't even think of the word now, whole pavilions, like on the 18th or 17th hole at the Canadian Open with like hundreds of people, and all cold call. And the trick was, everyone's watching this, now they're going to hear the stories, but anyways, the trick was getting through the gatekeeper.
Yep.
Right? And then figuring out who the decision maker was. This was no internet. Like we're talking no internet, no website. Like the internet existed, so we could Google phone numbers, but So it was sort of like early 2000s. And basically, yeah, you're literally just like on the phone with that person. You caught them completely off guard. You'd be like, hey, Joe. And you had to like grab, you talk about like building rapport. You had to like grab them by the neck, smash their face against their phone, through the phone, get them to wake up, build that rapport, like within like 5 seconds.
Yep.
And be like, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl, Jack. You're coming. And then it's just like, and you did that over and over and over again. Right?
How,
But anyways, and then I obviously trained people, mentored, like I was basically the best ever at it, not to toot my own horn.
no.
But anyways,
Well, I mean,
yeah, I was there longer and more successful than anyone in that company had ever been.
do you think George Foreman and like all these great ones, you don't think they sit around and talk about their stories? Right? You know, professors that are at university, they talk about, you know, how they came to this point, or, you know, why they're educating them. You know where you find a sales course? You find it in the back of the library in that motivational book situation, right? You say in the secret with sales. You know what I want to do? Just like you're shaking up the market, I want to open up the entire concept of how it's sold, the entire fragments of conversation. Why? Because everybody needs to know who's real and who's not in sales. And if you can figure that out, the job will be a lot easier as an entrepreneur. It'll be a lot easier as a sales representative if the truth just comes out right off the bat. Right? That pitch, that intro, that's your relation. That short story, that's finding out where your pain points are. That presentation is customized based off of that pain point. That close is assumptive because if you like me, the money's right, the time is right. Let's do it now. And my rehash is my follow-up, right? It's not just, we are not Vikings. We don't pillage neighborhoods anymore as business owners. What we do is we nurture business and we grow business. And we realize that if we all work together, we can get there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it's and there's that nurture part. I mean, cold calls and trying to close on a one call. Like basically if you hung up the phone, it was over. Like you were never going to get them back on the phone. We were faxing. We didn't even use email. We were faxing a contract, and the goal was to get them to walk with the phone to the fax, sign it, and fax it back. That was the goal. Like literally, people can't. Like I can't imagine people telling people now doing that. This is like we're talking 15 years ago, right?
I was knocking on doors, and people. I was like, "Well, we just need a void check or a credit card." And they're like, I don't have either. I'm like, where's your bank? And they're like,
you want to walk with them to get it?
We could walk to the bank many times. That's why I love working street marketing downtown. It's like you get right in the business district.
There's banks everywhere.
RBC is right there. Scotiabank's right there. BMO's right behind. Like it's like, which bank are you with?
They're all right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Like people think it's actually surprising the number of people that obviously hate sales reps. That's sort of like, you know, and then they feel like that the ability to sell something is difficult. It is difficult. It's not easy. But if you feel sort of full circle, if you are believe in what you're selling and that it actually can support or help them or change or do whatever, and sort of that why you're doing it, it makes it that much easier. And then it's more about building that relationship, right? It's more about seeing them eye to eye, right? Like I said, walking down the street with them hand in hand versus, you know, trying to, you know, blindfold them and drag them down the street, right? Or like blindside them and run them over, right?
We're gonna go for a drive right now, huh? Get in the back.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's not that. That's not it. It's a two-party thing. Although it's funny, I'm going to quote a Jay-Z thing that I've been listening to. It says something about I can't help the poor if I'm one of them. So I got rich and gave back to me. That's the win-win. anyways, it's just kind of funny
Sure.
because he gave back to himself because he was poor, now he's rich. Anyways.
I followed his quote, men and women lie, numbers don't. And, you
Right.
know, I focused on KPIs with my team for the years. And it's like accountability charts. I get people to hold themselves accountable. Right?
Right.
Just like yourself. If you're looking at me and being like, there's a wall, I'm going to look at you. I'm not, as a sales professional, as somebody that stands behind backers, I'm that type of person to be like, there's a wall, Brent. Can you help me? Yeah, I'm gonna look at the wall. I'm gonna be like, okay, how do we do this? Right? Because I'm genuinely curious of what's over the wall.
Right.
Right? And when you care about people that much, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in Newfoundland, you know, the small town,
There is a definite to be good, you actually have to, like we talked about that sort of fake, sales, or you can sort of see through it eventually. You actually genuinely have to care about people. And like you said, Newfoundland, maybe that's from your family sort of upbringing and that kind of like community feel, right? I've got a bit of Irish in me, so maybe it's the Newfoundlanders are from Ireland originally, or there's sort of a connection there to some extent, but yeah.
Newfoundlanders learn Newfoundland history before they learn Canadian history, where I grew up. And the old flag before they changed over to Confederation in 49 was the green, white, and the pink. And the green, white, and the pink stood for the green was the rolling hills of Ireland, the white was the White Cross of England, and the pink was the fleur-de-lis of France. So that's the three colonies that made up Newfoundland before the rest of the North America was developed. And then we held on to the Queen so hard until they're like, all right, you got us past the Second War, bugger off. So. I love history. I love history of people. I love lineages. I genuinely like when people talk about their passions. I research it. I get into it. I'm like, I want to get into their mindset.
Right.
And I think if I can understand where you're coming from, would it make it easier for me to sell it?
Yeah, of course.
So
I think though that the key that I think what we're both getting at is that not everyone, and it's unfortunate, not everyone cares as much about other people as maybe you or I, right? And they're more, and I think the interesting, probably I don't want to keep your time here, been going an hour. I went about 2 hours with former Olympian Richard Rock a couple of days ago. But we don't want to go 2 hours. I actually have to, you probably got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. Although you did say the other day, or earlier, the 5-minute conversation turns into 2 hours. But
it does. It does. And you know why it is because you get on a train of thought and then all of a sudden something more happens. And then it's like, oh, if we had to cut this off 15 minutes ago, we wouldn't have gotten this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know. I do drag on conversations longer than normal.
It's all good.
I genuinely want to know who you are.
And you care. And that's what I was getting at. So my point is that you care because you have that sort of, and I don't want to say other people don't. And I'm sort of maybe, again, thinking out loud here, is wondering, what is that innate caring? Like you were asking, maybe what are certain things, what would make a good salesperson or not, or somebody who cares. It is that, sort of caring about other people. And to your point that you made a while ago, if you get past the money or I just need the clothes, like you watch The Simpsons, that they kind of bring in a character almost from like Glenn Ross is sort of like I didn't close anything, and then Marge is a real estate agent, she's killing it because she's not worried about the money and not worried about closing the sale. She's just out there having fun, enjoying. Hey, you know what? If it's good for you, let's sit down and talk about it. If not, so be it, right? It's
I got my own ABCs, okay? So Alec Baldwin, great. Always be closing. Always be closing.
You told me the ADA, right?
I'm always caring. Always be caring.
Always be caring. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Like, here's the thing. When Leslie reached out to you on LinkedIn, that was months ago. Right? And
we connected probably close to a year ago at this point, like back in the fall. Yeah.
right? And the only reason why you didn't do it was because of time, and everything just got thrown at you, right? And then I caught you at the right time.
Oh yeah, we had connected. We kept sort of connecting throughout, and then yeah, it was, and then we sat down and talked, and yeah, it was ready to rock, right? So
The moment I got onto your LinkedIn and looked at you, and I'm seeing like 3H hockey, and I'm seeing backers, and I'm on the website, and like the newer version of the website, and going through it, it's like okay, what's next? What does he need? And when I get into these calls, you know how when we started this interview, we're like, let's just ad lib it, like no script or anything like that.
it's
That's
always ad-libbed.
how I do it now.
Yeah.
People look at me and they're like, there's no script. I'm like, I learned the script to get rid of it. I ditched the script. I just got rid of it. I'm like, because everybody's heard the script.
Yeah.
This has been played out way too many times. Way too many times.
Well, and I mean, you can still do those steps, but ad-lib them.
Yeah.
Right? Like one thing I was going to say too, you talk about the rehash. I worked very, very briefly in a role where it was selling consulting, and I would walk into B2B, similar to what you're sort of doing, like door to door, but it was B2B, and there was this whole sort of like script, and then, and I would usually get, 5 of them of 5 that I'd walk into. They'd book your meetings or whatever. I'd get them on the phone with the guy back in the office, and I did all the steps, and then I'd close 1 or 2 a day. But one of the things that they and I still use this, and I tried to instill it when I had a retail business, in our staff, is just because they say yes and you close the deal doesn't mean, okay, all right, yeah, thanks, and you just push them out the door. Because a lot of people will feel, and I think this is almost as important, will feel like, oh, I just got sold a bill of goods. Right? They felt the pressure.
When I ask people, I'm like,
so
how do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go to a mall, and well, I mean, if it's open, and
it's actually right across the street here. I'm gonna try something technology-wise. Hold on. Tell me if you can see this. Let's just try something here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Watch this. Did it work?
No, I see a blank screen now.
Didn't work, eh?
No.
Oh, well.
You working on? Oh, it's just like the switches over?
No,
They must have some API software that links it all together. I mean.
I was fooling around with this. But I was going to show you the malls right across the street. But anyways.
What mall is it?
Scarborough Town Center.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Scarborough Town Center. We had an office up there by Shepherd and McCowan for the company.
Yeah, and we're right. Our office is over on Concilium Place. That's where our offices are. But yeah, so just very quickly, so the rehash, right? And sort of like, don't just push them out the door, and not even rehash, but just continue the conversation, talk about different things, right? Because you care, because that you're all part of it. Because people feel like if they've been sold to, and that was one of the things that they sort of reiterated with this organization. They're like, even if you close the sale, I want you to stay there for 30 to 45 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like this, sort of like, well, just, stay and get to know them, right? You're now working together, right? It shouldn't be this like cool, this sort of like harsh, like, oh, you signed the document. I'm going to move on to my next call. Thanks. We're done here. Right. There should be like it's kind of like cuddling after. Anyways, that's probably, we're going down a different.
No, it's true. It's true.
There's a little bit of cuddling, right? Yeah.
Right. We used to have the 3 main ingredients to dealing with the public. It was smile, eye contact, and excitement.
Yeah.
They used to call it sex. You're going to have sex with people at the door.
Smile, eye contact, excitement. Yeah. Okay.
Smile, people smile. It's a contagious thing. Eye contact, confidence. Excitement builds interest. Right? Like there's a formula to sales. It's just, everything from impulse selling to like, remember the shopper, like the home shopping channel?
Yeah.
But Magic Bullet, all this stuff. I bought into that. And then I discovered what impulses were. And I'm like, it happens all the time. It's like we're impulsive by nature. It depends on what triggers us.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's the
definitely.
reaction, it's the emotion.
Yeah.
If I could find that, I can bring it out.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can
Yeah.
ignite it.
You have to elicit emotion, right? And get a reaction. Exactly.
Well, if I don't get any emotion, what am I getting? Like, I mean, like I got a wall back here. I could talk to it all day long. I'm not going to get through to it.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to go the other way where you could talk on it and like go through different things sort of just unscripted, right? Ad lib. Right?
Yeah.
So for
You know
sure.
what it is I mean, I met with businesses and they're like, give me your spiel. And I'm just like, what is that? And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, are you expecting me just to sit down here and just riddle off a bunch of words that I premeditated on before we had this conversation?
Yeah.
And they're like, it throws people off guard. Like I look at it being like, as a business owner, I want to work with the right customers, and as a customer, I want to work with the right business owners. We're one and the same,
Right.
right?
Oh, yeah.
It depends on what we want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, let's end it.
Yes.
One piece of advice, I like it, is that, well, maybe it wasn't a piece of advice. Let's ask that a question again, because I think your advice was that you wouldn't be able to go back and talk to yourself because yourself would be afraid. What would be that piece of advice, though, that you would give to yourself?
A good piece of advice?
Yeah.
One more door, one more conversation. Just keep going. Like you'll get there. Like that's the thing. You don't know you're going to get there until you get there. Do you really know? No.
No, you maybe have inclinations of it, but yeah, you're definitely.
I didn't know I was going to be working for an online, consulting company, co-founding that.
Yeah.
I didn't, right? But I knew that there was something that I wanted.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I thank you for taking the time. I'm looking
Thank
forward
you.
to the progression of backers.ca. And if you
Where can they find you? Where can they find Prism?
Where do they find Prism? Fullprismgroup.com. You can check out our social media pages as well, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the way to follow me on LinkedIn. Send a nice message out there. Just say, hi, Brent. I saw your video. I like what you're doing. I'm not going to sell you anything. Let's make some connection.
Be friends, right? Yeah.
Be my
Build
friend.
relationships.
Right? And if you don't want to be my friend, that's okay. I understand if you want to say no to me. If you don't want to message me, it's okay. Right?
Yeah.
But I guarantee I'll give you some fun.
There you go. Check it out. So Brent, thank you very much. I really appreciate it and look forward to working with you. So, and everyone else, thank you for joining me. This has been Powered by Backers. Great conversation with Brent. I'll be up again tomorrow. Another great guest. So I will see you guys. Until then, enjoy your day.
OMG, baby, tell them.